and climate change, and he'll be giving you significant updates also. With us, we also have Minister Robert Nesta Morgan, who is our minister that's responsible for works. He's been out there working to clean drains, gullies, and supporting our communities across this country. He will give you an update on the status of all of that. And of course, we have our team from ODPEM. They are the focal point for this. We are now in ODPEM's office. The Emergency Operations Center is live downstairs. Hopefully later on we can send you some images of what's happening there. We have teams that work throughout the night. They're working 24/7 monitoring what's happening across the country. We have reps from all of the key agencies, including the security forces and also the JDF there. So we are really getting prepared. Don't worry, your government has done the work, and we're here to report on what has been done and to take your questions this morning. So without much ado, we know the entire country is waiting for the man of the moment, Evan Thompson, or ever faithful head of the Meteorological Office in Jamaica, to give us an update on where Hurricane Melissa is and when we should expect to start feeling the effects of this hurricane. Evan?
Thank you very much, Minister Morris Dixon, and good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Good morning, especially to our ministers who are in attendance, and of course, all the distinguished persons who are here, including, of course, you, the media, and the members of our public. I want to say that this has been a long journey, but we are in for the run. We are about to be impacted even more by a hurricane that is a major hurricane moving over the waters of the Caribbean Sea. If you take a look at the image that is being projected, I believe that most of us are able to see this, but it shows that the center of the hurricane is now some distance, over 100 miles, to the south of Jamaica. It is south really of one of those points along the coast of St. Elizabeth. So it is really in that general direction, which would signify that it is closer to the western end of the island than to the eastern. You know, there's a common feeling that if it reaches there, that means the eastern part is free of all folly and will not experience anything that is related to this hurricane. But I would like to tell you that that is not really the case. And although the center has moved past your longitude, which is how far west it is, you will still see that the situation will deteriorate further right across the country, and all parishes are likely to be impacted. This is a Category 5 hurricane. There are no additional categories for hurricanes. We go from 1 to 5. Any stronger than that is still a Category 5. And so it is at the strongest category that it could possibly be. The system, yes, it could gain additional strength, but it will still remain a Category 5 hurricane. Now, it is just about at the point where the projected path of it will indicate that it will move closer to the island. Over the past many hours, it has been moving directly west, which means that the latitude has remained the same. It has not moved any further north or dropped to the south. It has stayed at the same latitude, continuing westward over the waters south of Jamaica. So we will show you the chart of how it's moving in a little while, but let me show you what our radar image is projecting as well. Radar, the Doppler radar in Jamaica is showing that there are numerous showers associated with the system. The center, as I said, some distance to the south, but around that center, immediately around it, is a very tightly knit area of showers, thunderstorms, intense activity, also very, very, very strong winds. That is where the maximum winds of the hurricane are actually concentrated, in the eye wall, which is right around that eye. And it's a very distinct eye. It's a couple of miles probably wide. And so it will actually show when it moves, if it moves over the island itself, a number of areas will experience the calm of the eye. But of course, that cannot be possible until you have gone through the eye wall And again, after the eye passes by, you have another aspect of the eye wall to go through as well. But this system shows, this picture shows that the system is generating lots of showers right around it. There are bands of rainfall that extend some distance from that eye. And here we see many of those bands also extending across sections of Jamaica. Many of our parishes have already started to experience some of the activity from this hurricane. A number of parishes have experienced rainfall, mainly light to moderate, but in occasions it has been heavy rainfall. Also experiencing tropical storm force winds, mostly gusts, but in some areas those sustained tropical storm force winds will continue over some areas and will increase over the number of areas of the country as the system moves a little bit closer. Now it is at the point where we are expecting that it will start to turn toward the north. This means that it will get closer and closer to Jamaica. That is the projected path. I have to keep saying that because it's often said that I said one thing and this is something else. But the truth is, this is a dynamic situation. It changes as the moments go by. And so the track changes are also possible. Earlier I was telling you that it would make landfall in Clarendon. Later I was saying it would have been in St. Elizabeth. It's not that anything was wrong with what was being said, but there are updates to the forecast based on information that is gathered and as the system moves closer. As you are closer to impact, the forecast gets more accurate. So when I tell you that we are being hit by a hurricane, you know that it is accurate. We are being hit by a hurricane. At this time, I can only say that it is likely that we will be hit by this hurricane. It is moving closer to us. There is just a small window of opportunity where it could continue to shift. The track could continue to be shifted toward the west, and then it could be moving over the waters to the west of Jamaica. Of course, all of us are hoping for that and praying for that. But at the same time, we have to be practical. Right now, the projected path takes it to the southwestern part of Jamaica, impacting either eastern Westmoreland or extreme western St. Elizabeth as it makes its entry, its landfall on Jamaica. Then it's expected to continue moving to the northeast. All at this time, it is expected to be a major hurricane. Right now, a category 5, it's quite likely that it will drop in terms of the strength of the system slightly to a category 4 before it makes the landfall. But still, let us prepare ourselves for a category 5 hurricane, if you can actually prepare for a category 5 hurricane. And then it will move over that southwestern part of the island, moving toward the northeast. We expect that the exit will be just about in the vicinity of St. Anne, along the coast of St. Anne, which means it is not going directly north, but somewhat east of north. So making its entry near the border of Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth, at this time that's a projection, and then moving across sections of Trelawney and St. James, in the interior of the island, through the cockpit country probably, and then moving across along to the coast of St. Anne. So that's the projected path. During this time, it's likely that it will weaken a little bit more. It may exit the island, possibly as a category 3. It might still be a weak category 4 at that time, and then it will continue on its way closer to the eastern part of Cuba. So that is the forecast. It is expected that that entry, that landfall, will take place early on Tuesday. That means within 24 hours, tomorrow morning. It could actually be during the early hours before the sun. Is there a sun? We haven't seen it for a few days. but when at sunrise, we still have that time that we call sunrise, whether it rises or not. And so at that time, we should be seeing that there is a landfall of the center of this hurricane. A landfall means, yes, that the center is moving across the coastline, but it also means that the areas around that coastline are going to be most impacted. Around that eye will be most impacted. So parts of eastern Westmoreland, parts of western St. Elizabeth, and then surrounding areas of those moving as it continues to move, the closest areas to that center will get the greatest impact. We'll get the strongest winds reaching hurricane force. So hurricane force winds are expected over parts of Westmoreland as well as St. Elizabeth. The extent of hurricane force winds is just about 80 kilometers, I believe. because it's about 40 on either side of the center. So that's the extent of hurricane force winds. Depending on where that center is, you can measure whether your area is likely to experience it. But of course, there is some shift in exactly where that landfall will take place. Then the tropical storm force winds extend a much greater distance and should cover the entire island, or most of the island. To the east will be impacted by tropical storm force winds, even though the center is not moving across your area. So if you think that you live in Kingston and you will not experience the eye, and so you are free from fear or worry or concern, I don't want to encourage fear or worry, but I do expect you to be concerned about what is taking place. If you think that you are free from that, think again, because the heavy rains will also affect you. The strong winds reaching tropical storm force could still continue to affect you as we go through the day on Tuesday. That's all the way through tomorrow. The exit of this system is likely to take place in the evening hours on Tuesday as well, so it's not expected to remain over the island until Wednesday, because there will be a slight increase in the wind speed, in the direction of, in the speed of movement of the system. Right now, it's still moving at only about 6 or 7 kilometers per hour, but it should pick up a little bit as it is moving across us, and so we expect only about 6 to 8 hours as it moves from the south coast to the north coast. The rainfall is what is being shown. The projected rainfall is what is being shown on this chart that you're seeing here. This is showing that you could have anywhere up to 30 inches of rainfall over much of the country. And that includes all central parishes, it includes eastern parishes, and to some extent, some sections of western parishes could see that. If you're in hilly terrain, you should also look out for even more rainfall, because in hilly terrain, the rainfall amounts are expected to be higher. Of course, we expect that you will have a lot of flooding from this. And you can see on the picture that all of the island will experience even up to 20 inches of rainfall over sections of your area. So if you are in a flood-prone area, anywhere across the country, you can expect that flooding is going to occur as long as the system moves in the direction that is projected. Landslides are also a very real possibility and likelihood, because as the soil is saturated and as the soil is loose, we are expecting that we will have landslides as well. Moving on, this picture shows a little bit about the storm surge that is expected. And there are some areas that are being highlighted where we see in the Black River area, that is where the highest likelihood of storm surge is at this point, based on the current projection of the track. The center should be just west of there, and therefore they would have the greatest likelihood of experiencing higher storm surges, getting up to like 16 feet. That's a possibility, or 14 feet, I should say, in that area. As you move along the coast, of course, there are some areas that might not be impacted significantly by storm surge, especially if you don't have a gradual slope onto the land, but you might have a cliff face. But if you're moving into the Portland Cottage area, Salt River area, because you're in that little inlet, you also have a strong likelihood of experiencing some storm surge. It would not be as high as experienced over in the west, but you should also look out for some surge occurring in those areas of Clarendon and going into the Old Harbor Bay area. That's a possibility. Also in the vicinity of, as we move closer to Kingston, as St. Catherine as you move from across the border from St. Catherine into Kingston, St. Andrew, along the coast, could also experience some amount of storm surge. And that is basically it in terms of the technical aspects of this presentation. I just want to encourage all of us to have faith in this time, believe that we will get through it, and we will get through it together. Nobody is on their own. If you feel that you're on your own, reach out to somebody. And if you see somebody who is alone and who seems very depressed at this time, seems very anxious, please reach out and offer some words of assurance, because this is not the end. It's the end of my presentation, but it's not. But it is not the end of our time here on this earth. We will move past it, and it's not all doom and gloom. The good news is that we can still hope for that shift in the track toward the west that would take the center off the coast of the island. So I'm leaving you with that last message. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Evan, for that update. As usual, I'm going to take the questions for Evan. If anybody has any questions, we will get back to more questions at the end. So I just want to check if anybody has any questions. All right, over there. How are we going to get the microphone over to you? And please say your name and introduce which entity you are with.
Mic check. You hear? Oh, okay. You hear me. Okay. Morning, everybody. Mahiri Stewart, Nationwide News here. Question for Mr. Thompson. In terms of the system's movement once it hits Jamaican terrain, in the event of a landfall, so it leaves the waters and it reaches our terrain, the hilly terrain, the valleys, all the different characteristics that we have, how will it reaching landfall affect its movement as it goes across the country?
Thank you for the question, Nationwide News. What happens when a hurricane moves off the water is that it loses its main source of energy. The warm sea surface temperatures is what really fuels these hurricanes. That's the primary thing that fuels them. When they move over land and there is no source of water, they tend to plateau or start to weaken. If there is a lot of friction on the land, if it's not just flat land that they're moving over and there are lots of hills, that also helps in kind of weakening the system. So that's why we often see systems moving from the east when they move over Haiti and the mountains of Hispaniola, that they tend to weaken significantly. Over in the western end of the island, although there are hills, they may not be significant to weaken that much. So there will be slight weakening, but we do expect that the system will still be a major hurricane when it exits. Hope I've answered. Okay.
I'm not seeing any other questions as yet. And just to all of our students who are watching, you heard some concepts from your geography class, longitude and latitude. Your teachers weren't just teaching you things for teaching you sake. They actually have relevance. You heard Evan using them. And so I'm hoping parents, if you don't know what Evan was talking about, ask your students, your children. They should know. We teach it in school. So we're going to be moving on now after having heard that very sobering assessment from Evan Thompson about this Cat 5 hurricane that is coming towards Jamaica. It's projected to come to Jamaica and will come across the country and will exit Jamaica still as a major hurricane. We're going to now hear from Minister Matthew Samuda, our Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change, for some additional updates.
Thank you, Minister Dixon, colleague ministers, heads of agency, PS, members of the media, Jamaican listening and watching at home. 165-mile-an-hour winds, 17-foot storm surge, 30 inches of rain in some places is nothing to play with. I think Evan has been trying to bring it home to Jamaicans for the last few weeks. It's almost 2 weeks now based on the slow pace of the storm, the seriousness of the storm, and the potential damage that it can cause. We've started every press conference where I've had the opportunity to speak by simply saying it is not time to panic, but time to prepare. The time for preparation is all but over. Time now is to listen to instructions, certainly if you're within any of the areas for evacuation, and to listen to reputable news sources, certainly the Met Service, JIS, OPM, Prime Minister's accounts, the Ministry accounts, because we're already seeing a lot of false news going around. Areas that are said to be flooded, which are not flooded, which can hamper evacuations and can hamper people trying to get out of harm's way. So we're asking all citizens to listen to reputable news sources that publish the Met Service data and the Met Service guidance, as well as NWA's guidance, and of course all the guidance from utilities. Moving into our utilities and certainly NWC, to which I have responsibility for. As at midday, we will start publishing status updates every 3 or so hours in terms of which systems are indeed up and which seat systems are being impacted. We're already having impact in some systems in eastern Jamaica, which would have gotten the first set of waves where we're experiencing single phase power. But in those areas, it would not be suitable to mobilize generators yet. So you will start to see, as the storm moves, makes a turn, Evan, and goes north and starts to get closer to us and power systems start to go down, you will start to see disruption to water systems, we imagine, later this evening, going into early morning tomorrow. So we are encouraging everyone to backfill their storage, whether it is they have a tank or buckets or whatever it is they're using to put aside clean water. Now is definitely the time to put aside your water for storage and to use sparingly. Every drop will count. I am assured, having met with the senior management team of the National Water Commission this morning, that we are well placed to dispatch our 50-plus generators very quickly after the storm. We're in constant contact with suppliers. We're in constant contact with our emergency-based staff. And we're comfortable with where we are in that regard. I'm also comfortable with the work that we're doing with the JPS. JPS is, as we speak, in some areas, still, I know, doing some maintenance work on lines that go to particularly critical water infrastructure. And that does, I think that is a marked change from Beryl last year. As I said, this is a short update. The time for preparation is almost at an end. We encourage everyone to listen to the notifications and the advisories from reputable sources. We will ask you, post the storm, to be patient as we get water commission systems back up and running. But we do have things in place, we believe, to get to 80% of our customer base relatively quickly. Now, that getting to, as we've said before, does not mean uninterrupted supply. Generators need resting time. Generators do have to be refueled. We will have to monitor these systems very clearly, but it will be a significant improvement from what you would have experienced in Hurricane Beryl. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Samuda. We're going to be going to Minister Morgan now, who will update you on the work that he's been doing with the NWA to prepare us for the storm. Minister Morgan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morris Dixon, and thanks to the team here at ODPEM, members of the media. I see JSIF. I also see Minister Mackenzie, Minister Vaz. The National Works Agency, through its Emergency Operations Center, has so far received 15 reports from across the island. These reports include fallen trees, rockfall, down power lines, and landslides. We've responded and removed the impediments and repaired, or reopened rather, all but one of the roads that have been blocked. And we're actively working to reopen the one that is currently blocked, which was impacted by fallen trees. And I think this one is in St. Anne's Bay near the roundabout. We continue to urge people to exercise extreme caution if they have to be outdoors at this time. Rock falls are an imminent threat. We have seen this along the Little Bay Main Road in St. Mary, and there are other places that are susceptible to this kind of situation, so we urge caution. We've done quite a bit of work across the island in terms of drain work mitigation, and several critical drains across the island have been impacted, have been targeted, and we will continue as long as it's safe to do so. So you would have seen even yesterday, we had a front-end loader in the Sandy Gully trying to continue to create a pathway for the water to move to the sea. On Thursday, we also started work on the channel to the sea in the Sandy Gully. And this section is critical. And I want to explain a little bit as to what we have done at the Sandy Gully. We were in the process of planning a massive rehabilitation of the gully, also a massive desilting program for early next year. But the hurricane did not acquiesce to our timing. And as such, we had to move very quickly to the urgent work. The most important thing that we are trying to do is, one, protect the lives and property of the people who live adjacent to the gully, past the bridge, near Seaview Gardens. And 2, the bridge that is on Spanish Town Road, which is a very critical bridge. It connects to the ports. As I said before, it connects to Jamaica's most important health facility, KPH, also Bustamante Children's Hospital if you're traveling from that side. So it's very important that we not allow that bridge to be damaged if the hurricane does inundate that area. We've removed 500 loads of silt from under the bridge or in the vicinity of the bridge over the last 5 days. Some persons are saying, well, we should clean all the way to the sea. That is 1.5 kilometers from the bridge to the sea, and it is 37 meters wide. If that section that we cleaned was 500 truckloads of silt, think about how many trucks and excavators and backhoes and front-end loaders would be required to remove 1.5 kilometers of silt with a width of 37 meters, a couple thousand trucks. So we have done as much as the engineers have said we can do at this time to create a pathway under the bridge so that water can flow. Based on what we have done, the bridge is safer. The flow is no longer compromised. And while we have done much work to mitigate the impact of the impending hurricane on our infrastructure, we want to appeal to the public. And I know Minister Mackenzie has done so, and Minister Samuda has done so, Minister Vaz. Do not interact with infrastructure that you think is compromised. If the bridge looks shaky, do not attempt to go on the bridge or across the bridge. Do not try to traverse gullies that are flooded. We've had historical evidence of persons in very powerful vehicles seeking to traverse gullies, and they lost the competition. So we're advising the public that this is a serious hurricane. Our gullies cannot be used while they are flooded. We know that persons may be wanting to go to their farms and visit their relatives after the disaster, but we must listen to the bulletins from ODPEM and the other relevant entities to tell us when the infrastructure is safe. The National Works Agency will carry out a very quick assessment of infrastructure after the storm has passed and when it is safe for our teams to do so. Because you see a power line falling does not mean that the lines are dead. And sometimes our teams have to wait on the utility companies to tell us that these lines do not have electricity in them before we can clear the road. And those are some of the things that we have to do before we start clearing. But we'll be doing critical assessment of our important infrastructure, and we'll advise the public when this infrastructure is in a state that it can accommodate persons and traffic. So we are asking citizens to avoid using or approaching any road or bridge or structure that appears to be damaged, cracked, or unstable. And you can report such cases to our emergency center, and I will repeat the number. I will give you the number here: 658-213-2557. That's 658-213-2557 to 60. Let me give it a third time: 658-213-2557 to 60, or 876-312-3991, 876-312-3991, and 876-312-3987. Or you can contact the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management. I wish to thank the NW teams, the contractors and first responders, and community volunteers who continue to serve on the front lines of this period of national emergency. I want to repeat again. Can you repeat again, Desmond? Or I want to repeat. Do not cross flooded gullies and roads. Do not cross flooded gullies and roads. Do not seek to navigate compromised or damaged infrastructure, whether it be bridges, whether it be culverts. Report damage to ADPEM and the National Works Agency. I also want to say finally, some gullies will not be able to accommodate the volume of water that is about to fall on Jamaica. I'm speaking directly to the persons on the McGregor Gully and Burger Gully. You know that when it rains heavily, the gully overflows. There are other communities across the island that know when it rains heavily, the gullies are not able to accommodate the water. You should move. The government has opened many shelters, over 800 shelters across the island. The shelters are safe. The National Works Agency and the emergency services may find it challenging to rescue you during the hurricane when the gullies have topped their banks. So we're asking again, while we have done mitigation, mitigation will not necessarily conquer a Category 5 hurricane. So we're asking persons along these gully banks to be careful, to watch, to leave if you can, or to leave if you, well, you should leave, as we know that the gullies will not be able to accommodate the water. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Dr. Morris Dixon.
Thank you very much, Minister Morgan. And as I listen to you, you know, as Jamaicans, we remember other times when we've had floods and we've had rivers that became impassable and we had people trying to go through gullies. And as you were speaking, I was remembering something that only Jamaicans would have reference to, was that Can I Cross It song? Remember Clifton? Yes, that's what you were saying. Clifton Brown, he said, we cannot cross it and we're not going to cross those bridges and we're not going to go across those rivers. We're going to heed the warnings that have been given here. And so, with that said, we are now going to be having Minister Vaz, but before that, just reminding you that as Minister Morgan has said, a lot of work has happened. We do have NWA here in the room, so we can also take some questions after. But their teams have been out there working really hard to do as much mitigation work as they possibly can. And so we thank you and we thank the teams that are out there working with the NWA. We are now going to move to Minister Vaz. Everybody wants to know what's going on. We know the airports are closed. Energy, transportation, telecoms.
Morning. I'm moving away from saying good morning. And from now until whenever we recover, I will just say, Almighty Father, spare us. Let me start with some of what I've said before. The airports remain closed until such time as the hurricane passes. The toll booths are all open, all, both on the east-west and the north-south, not just on the main, but on the exits as well. And those will remain open until such time as the recovery of the hurricane is at a point where we can reopen. JUTC, all bus service has been terminated. Only emergency services for JUTC, which I'll give you some information. And as I would have said last night, that we have also activated our rural school buses, which will play a critical role in rural Jamaica. We have over 60 school buses that are in all parishes, across all parishes. So those will be utilized, save and except for the fact that because of how they are designed and their weight, in muddy conditions, they will tend to sink. And that is obviously because of the safety standards put in for the safety of the children. But we'll have to find a way to utilize them as best as possible. Sorry. So, JUTC, as I said before, regular services are suspended until it is safe to operate. JUTC is in emergency response mode with teams on standby for evacuation at Rockfort, Spanish Town, Portmore, and all 5 rural school bus regions. JUTC has responded to several calls for evacuation since Saturday. Unfortunately, only 103 persons have been evacuated. And that includes up to today. The figures for today, including today as of 11 o'clock, is 148, sorry. So there has been an uptick, but way, way beyond what is required for a Category 5 hurricane. Only one person in Port Royal, 42 in Tower Street, Raytown, 50 in Rocky Point, Portland Cottage, and Parity and Sandy Bay, 55. I want to make an appeal again that take everyone at his word, regardless of where it enters and where it exits. There is going to be massive flooding as a result of the surf that is going to require persons to relocate from their existing locations. So again, I can only add to the call, but advise you to listen to the government and listen, or should I say, if you don't want to listen to the government, listen to Evan. JPS report, there are no major incidents currently on the electricity grid. However, the system is beginning to experience the effect of heightened wind and rainfall extending across the island. There were areas in Portland and St. Thomas that had outages, but crews were unable to respond immediately because of unsafe weather conditions. These are being addressed along with other reported outages across the island. At 9 a.m. this morning, there were 51,439 customers without electricity, broken down as follows: 33,633 customers in the West, that's 65% of the outages, 13,009 in Central, it's 25%, and 4,797 in the East, 10%. Outages are increasing with deteriorating weather, and with each outage affecting on average 50 to 100 customers. The major cause of outages are trees on lines due to the high soil saturation levels. There are approximately 550 persons pre-positioned and are responding to outages as weather conditions permit. Let me remind you, take note, the My JPS app and the emergency line 888 called JPS, which is 225-5577, 888-93-5577. Let me repeat those. 225-5557, 888-935-577. Also, My JPS online on all social media platforms. The JPS mobile app can be downloaded from the Apple Store or the Google Play. I recommend that everybody does that so that you can at least report and get a reference number in order to send. So let me say once again that we continue to monitor. I must tell you that I've gotten several calls around the corporate area of power outages, and we have not had any level of rain or wind. So I did have some terse words this morning with the JPS, because I told them that if that is what is going to be the norm in terms of 12 hours to respond, it's not going to happen. It's unacceptable. So keep faith, keep strong, and know that you have a government that is going to be there for you, with you, but you need to be smart. If you're smart, we can work together. If you are not, unfortunately, you will pay the consequences. This hurricane is real. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Vaz. For those who are just joining right before Minister Mackenzie comes, just reminding you that Melissa is a Category 5 hurricane that's projected to make landfall somewhere near to the border of St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland. Airports remain closed. A lot of drain cleaning work has been done and mitigation work has been done. Evacuations are being done through JUTC. JUTC has been there with the buses waiting to evacuate people. but many are not going on those buses. And so we urge you to evacuate now. Evacuate today because the conditions will deteriorate. You also heard that there have been some outages across the country in terms of electricity, and a lot of that has been related to trees on lines due to the saturation of the soil. And we'll give you the updates again, the key points for you to remember at the end of this. And so now we're going to hear from Minister Desmond McKenzie, or Minister of Local Government and Community Development, and Minister who has responsibility for ODPEM. I'm wearing an ODPEM pin now. They just gave me a pin. I'm apparently now an honorary member of the ODPEM team, and I'm very happy to be a part of this team. You're all doing a fantastic job, and thank you. So, Minister, please join us.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning to each and everyone, and especially to my colleagues. Welcome, Minister Morgan, for joining us this morning, and to our viewers. First of all, let me start off with some information on our shelters. As I have reported previously, there are over 800 shelters across Jamaica. Of the 800 shelters that are open, only 76 of the 800 shelters are seeing any activities at all. The number of persons so far, the up-to-date information that I have in my possession, which was presented to me based on the networking that we have been doing, represents 972 persons in shelters. There are 4 parishes that have no one in the shelters. Clarendon has the highest number of persons so far, 311. Followed by St. Thomas with 227, and Kingston and St. Andrew with 179. I am hoping that the next update that is presented will show a much greater picture, because I'm concerned that in the parishes where this system is heading, the numbers are small. St. Elizabeth, our number is 27. In St. James, 24. In Westmoreland, 32. And the numbers are very low. I am expecting that by later this afternoon, we will see increase numbers of persons going to the shelters. We are anticipating, based on our projections and the work that we have been doing, that close to 50,000 persons will be relocated, either moving to safe grounds or in the shelters. But we are expecting that over 50,000 Jamaicans and more will be moving. It is important, ladies and gentlemen, that I again emphasize the importance of the mischief that is being made, the false and malicious information being circulated about the use of shelters. Someone sent me a message which says that there's a fee being charged for the use of shelters. Nonsense. What is happening is that there is an attempt by persons with bad intention to create confusion at this time. The country don't need confusion at this time. the only passport one need to go to the shelter is that you go, the shelters are there, we separate male from the females, families stay together, walk with your medication, walk with some water and crackers for the first couple of hours, but once the centers are activated in a way, there is nothing that those persons who are in the shelters will be denied of. Again, I urge Jamaicans not to listen to misinformation. It is bad at this time for us to be getting this kind of information. We still have some challenges with some of the persons on the streets, the homeless. On my way here this morning, I passed about 6 of them with their cell phones doing TikTok. I want to make it clear. The mandatory order has been signed and is in effect. Let me advise the public that the Director General of ADPEM can take the necessary actions that he deems fit, and persons can be arrested and fined for not complying with the order. We don't want to go there. Evan was here earlier on and he explained the challenges we face from water, wind, lightning. The government is doing all of this in the interests of the country. We are ensuring that the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, as I said yesterday, is on ready, working closely. Let me break to invite the most honorable Prime Minister to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, along with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management and the other agencies, are fully activated. And already we are seeing where persons have been reaching out, seeking assistance, and we have been responding as we get the calls. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is 11:30 in the morning. There's not much time left. We have done everything that we can. And I am concerned. So far, I presently have the team working on getting more details out of the various parishes from our coordinators as to the numbers in regards to the shelters. The issue around the question of cranes that I raised, the city engineer for the KSMAC have been engaging contractors, and I understand that there is a method that is used in the industry that would allow the